Joining us. This is Live with Miami's Community News, and I'm Michael Miller. Our special guest is the mayor of the Village of Palmetto Bay, Karen Cunningham. Thank you for coming back. All right.
Of course. I'm looking forward to doing this every month with you.
So this is our March catch-up, and we're going to do one in April. All right. But let's catch up with, since the last time you were here, what's going on in Palmetto Bay?
So many things. We've got so many community-driven organizations that are doing great things. I went to 7 events. Not Palmetto Bay events. I see we're putting up some of the pictures. Well, this picture was a journalism class. Actually, you would appreciate this.
Yes.
Journalism class at UM. I spoke to them on how they can establish relationships with elected officials. That was late last week. This was past Sunday. That's my nephew up in the front in his wheelchair on the left side. Cameron. This was Samantha's Purpose, raising awareness for cerebral palsy. Let's see what else you got. This was it's Women's History Month on top of that, so a special thank you for having me. This was, you see a lot of elected officials there. This was in Doral, the Miami-Dade League of Cities, of which I'm president, hosted with Mayor Christy Fraga. She's featured there on the right-hand side.
So you're the president of the Dade County League of Cities.
I am until June, and then I'll be past president.
So how do you get appointed or elected to that? How does that work?
Well, it's been a remarkable journey, honestly. I was voted in by colleagues through the league. It was actually Joe Cordino that tapped me.
Our neighbor in Palmetto Bay.
Yeah, with the caveat that I would never be president. I think I've said that. I don't know if I've said it to you, but I was not supposed to be president.
I am not a politician. I'm not going to do this again.
Well, because I would have been termed out. I term out in 2026, so I wouldn't have made it to president.
Termed out for where?
For Palmetto Bay. You have to be elected.
And how long you been elected office?
I've been elected office 10 years.
So let me see if I got this right. You've been in there 10 years. You get termed out in a year plus, right?
Plus, yeah.
So before we get on to anything else, what happens to Karen Cunningham after you get termed out?
Well, it's a surprise. I'm going to surprise you with that.
Well, we're going to announce it here first.
All right, deal.
Okay. So folks, we already know it's something. Okay. So, do we have any other pictures?
Yeah, we might have. Oh, this was, this was oh no, actually this is another organization called Rising Starts. These are young people on the spectrum, neurodivergent students, Rising Starts in Palmetto Bay. They got a grant from the Children's Trust, and they're going to be having a contest for the top 2 projects, entrepreneurial projects. So pretty cool stuff that they're doing. Most of these are young adults. Raquel Regalado, Commissioner Regalado's daughter, goes to school there.
She has 1 or 2.
Right.
All right. They're adults.
Her daughter, right.
When the commissioner was here, she was one of our speakers here at meet and greet. She said they deserve a seat at the table, and I take that to heart. And Michelle's saying, yes, we do at community newspapers, and we want to be able to provide that table and an opportunity for those people.
That's really cool.
All right, and it's significant for us as we get a little bit older. You realize we can help some of those things happen. So
well, at the end of the day, I mentioned it at the CP 2K. People just want to fit in. When my sister first moved here in 2012 with my nephew, he was a little more abled physically. He was able to walk a little more than he walks now. But she mentioned to me, like, where are the people in wheelchairs here? Where have you put them? And I said, no, they're around. But I realized we don't see that very often. Yep. So it was an adjustment for them, and I think raising awareness is always good.
Part of what I think we need to be as human beings is bring it from the shadows, bring it from back, and at least get it up so there's a conversation. And as we know, when we can have a conversation, that we give it an opportunity for it to breathe by itself.
Absolutely.
And we look what Simone Biles did and Michael Phelps when they talked about mental health, right?
Sure.
And they were the ones that said, oh my goodness, it's okay. You can have a mental health day. And you can take off some time because you need to get adjusted.
That's right.
And when we see the connection between dysfunction and mental health and drug abuse, it's sort of all tied in there together. So we've been fortunate to be able to have a lot of guests on that have been able to have that conversation. So let's get back to
that'll be for another show. Okay. Oh, and this is Amigos for Kids. The young lady to the right, actually, I think she's the young lady in the front. No, she's in the back. This is her program. She raised $10,000 for Amigos for
How
Kids.
do I know? I know this organization, but what is it they do?
They provide programming. It's near Calle Ocho at Jose Marti Park, after school programming for children whose families wouldn't ordinarily be able to send their children to after school programming. And I believe they told me they're looking at a second location. I'm not a subject matter expert on Amigos for Kids, but it is a great organization.
And you were at all these places. So in between, you go to work somewhere.
I do.
And
I go
then
to work at UTD.
That's United.
Not every day. If you're
United
watching
Teachers-
UTD, not every day. I know
United
I'm not
Teachers-
there every day.
And you have to show up at the political office and do some things there.
I do,
Right.
but I manage. I like. I think of work as a continuum.
Okay.
It's fun. I
Okay.
enjoy it.
Any other pictures?
I think we did. Oh my goodness! I forgot about this. This was amazing. This was on Sunday. Holocaust Impact Theater. Ira and Ruth Gordon. You all, I hope, would feature this one time. 20 years. This was the most impactful one. I said to these young people, I've been 10 years in office, as we established, 18 years in a first grade classroom, working for United Teachers of Dade. I have been uncomfortable. We've all been uncomfortable sometimes.
Yes.
I was never more uncomfortable than when I was sitting in there, and it got the expected response. All the children, these are high school students, all applauded because the show was called Linked, and it was designed to make you uncomfortable, taking you back to the Holocaust and bringing you forward and connecting it with things that are happening in our modern world. We won't get into all the politics of the things that are happening today, but pretty cool what they're doing. And I was uncomfortable. I was sweating during their program.
It's when we get uncomfortable that you get a chance to look at yourself and see what's going
Yeah,
on.
that's right.
So recently we've interviewed 5 Holocaust survivors. Right?
That's great.
And so we're going to put this into a documentary because we only have a little bit of time left to do that. And it is uncomfortable. We had somebody sitting right there a week ago or so, Mr. Alexander. He rolled up his sleeve.
Yes.
All right. And there's
Joseph.
a number right there.
His name is Joseph Alexander.
And as a matter of fact, he was at the Palmetto Bay.
That's right.
And I
That's
thank
right.
Rabbi
Yep.
Gansberg
Yes.
for bringing him over. It was really quite symbolic, and it was very emotional.
It is.
And thinking about it
Makes you think your everyday things that we complain about,
yes,
really not that important.
yeah, exactly. So some things that are important is a couple of weeks ago, the vice mayor of the fine village of Palmetto Bay came over, and we talked about a lot of things, including some property that's behind some people's homes in Palmetto Bay that the city, the village, wanted to put a park there.
Sure.
I've seen the photograph where it shows a drawing of this very nice walkway park that was some 120 feet wide, or maybe a little more. Looked beautiful. And then I subsequently found out that Mark, the vice mayor, had actually presented that. But it looks like that Mark was a deciding vote to give all the property to the neighbors. Did I have that right?
Yeah, I'm going to try and give a really short synopsis of it because it is complicated, but facts matter, and so do timelines. Actually, back in 2018, the village made a commitment that then Mayor Eugene Flynn this is something we wanted to explore. There were some changes. One, I became mayor. Two, Ed Silva, now mayor of West Miami,
City manager,
moved on, resigned and moved on. And then COVID, then we had a new manager, a few little things. So that resolution never really got any legs. We just directed the then manager, hey, go and explore this initiative to capture one folio. So, and actually, if you don't mind, I do have a picture here. It's actually a text message from the vice mayor prior to him being vice mayor, but it's a great picture when you bring that up. So it's 4 folios. We were only looking at one folio. It's actually this folio we were looking at here. So we were looking at this one space. It's like an L shape. To create a pocket park. We talked about it as a pocket park. Fast forward in 2022, and if you can just hold that there for, actually, I'll let you bring it back up if you don't mind in a few minutes, and we'll take a look at the rendering. But in 2022, we get a letter from the county saying that an individual, her name is Cassandra Padron, who was at the time renovating a home. An adjacent property owner was interested in purchasing the property. I immediately spoke to the manager and said, oh my goodness, this is completely connected with something we talked about in 2018. It's this one folio where we could create a pocket park that county was asking us, if you're interested, please respond in 10 days. I guess with the assumption that later to find out, because the county did mention at a public meeting that they felt that the property was best served if it was given to the city. 2022, we send a letter to the county that we're interested. 2023, we bring an item. We place the park space, the one folio, in our parks master plan. That was July 2023. And then if you fast forward just a little bit, many months of conversations with the county, we find out that our commissioner, Danielle Cohen-Higgins, had proffered a resolution to not give the property to the city, but instead give the property to an adjacent property owner, the one that had applied for it, this Cassandra Padron. I eventually made contact with Cassandra.
And what size is that piece of property?
I know you asked me this before, but I want to say it's about 3 acres, 3 acres of property.
The one folio.
The one folio.
It's 3 acres.
I believe that to be correct. I'm gonna say, okay. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, so I don't want to be quoted on the size. But later, so this resolution, well, first of all, the county then tells us, listen, if you're going to acquire this one property, why not look at all 4 folios? So that would take a safe route to school or a pathway from 144th Street, where there's a sidewalk, all the way through, past the canal, down across 141st, and over to 77th Avenue, where there's also a sidewalk. And Howard Drive is just a hop, skip, and a jump. Literally, it's like a couple blocks away. We find out that the item is going to be heard. We were not, honestly, we were not aware that the item was going to be heard before one of the committees. We go before the commission later, ask if they could rehear it so that we'd have the opportunity to speak and share our plans for the property. Commissioner Raquel Regalado was the chairperson for that particular committee, and she basically told us, go split this baby, go out and find a way to collaborate with the neighbors, because at this point, the neighbors, multiple neighbors, were saying that they didn't want the park space in their backyard. Instead, they wanted the one property owner to purchase it because that's county ordinance. And then the understanding for them was that one property owner would then sell portions of it to them, and they could use that property for whatever they choose. We started having meetings. We offered pretty much everything that was outlined in a letter to the commissioner from the property owners, a group, and it's really a handful. I want to say maybe 12 homes or 12 homes. I think that sounds about right. So the homeowners that did not want to have a linear pathway out in the back, even though we were going to buffer and give them property, still give them what they were asking for, signed on to a letter to the commissioner. We met with everybody that was on that list and just asked. I was not present for all the meetings, the manager. So a lot of resources were spent, including, as the vice mayor said, we hired a lobbyist because frankly, in my opinion, that's what you have to do sometimes to get some movement. I don't have relationships with every one of the commissioners. This way, the lobbyist was able to move.
That's like a little person can have a conversation and get people to agree to something. And
he was also doing work for us on the bridge. Was another, so got a couple pieces here. But then elections happen. And what we had originally agreed on, because I know earlier we were talking and you said, I don't know, or actually it was in your conversation with the vice mayor, you said, I don't know what's going on here. It seems like a flip-flop, but you have a different person now on council. And
because
so
he was not an elected official.
He was not an elected official.
Okay.
Although, and if you could bring up that one screenshot, the picture of the park again with the text message.
Thank you.
If you don't mind, can you scroll down? So this would be in, and this is it's a public record, a little bit further to where the words are. There you go. So this was from the now vice mayor, but note, it's January 9th, 2023. Hello, Mayor Cunningham. I hope this conceptual rendering is useful for a pocket park. Feel free to use, no credit needed or strings attached. I plan on speaking in strong support of the item. And if you scroll up, he gave me this beautiful rendering. This was
the
his
now vice
rendering.
mayor did that when he was not elected.
Correct. It was January 2023.
Okay.
Yeah, it would have been a year plus prior to his putting his name in the race. And actually, it's quite beautiful. This is, I don't want to say this is exactly what we were looking at, but when you look at this, giving people the space, you see some fences there, you know, folks would have their space, but then we would also have this walkway or bikeway. And there's already people that play in the area, even though there are signs that say they walk their dogs there, but there are signs that say they can't be there. So new vice mayor, new ideas. He brought an item to rescind the original item. So there really wasn't any flip-flopping, because with the new council, in the past, Councilwoman Mattson had voted for and against. When push came to shove and we said, hey, go to the county, and they're offering it for $14,000, which is, you know, I would do that. I'd take money out of my retirement fund to provide public space for the community. So she did not vote in support of it. She had voted in support early on, but then not at the end. And Councilmember Fiore, who's a very dear friend, he didn't support it as well. So, but it passed by a vote of 3, which was then Vice Mayor Leanne Tellem, Councilmember Cody, and myself. When the new item came just a couple of months ago, we have the new vice mayor, it's his item, and it was to rescind, so kind of to turn back, remove our application from the county. He had the same support that was in opposition, if that makes sense, because he voted to support his item to rescind. Councilwoman Mattson voted to rescind the green space, and then Councilmember Fiore, who didn't want it to begin with, then, you know, voted to rescind the original application. So
to take away the application from the county.
That's correct.
So then that happened. So all of a sudden, it's as if, I mean, there was
it's
no
as
application.
if we didn't do anything, right?
And so what occurred because of that?
Well, the manager had to send in a letter we had to stop, cut ties with the lobbyist. And the manager had to send in a letter, pretty simple, basically to say, hey, we are no longer interested. Please rescind our application. And we were far along in the process.
And when was that? A couple months ago, no?
Yeah, it was actually it was in February. Yeah, thanks for the reminder. Yeah, it was in February.
So this is...
It's all fresh. It's all fresh.
Right.
And, listen, at the end of the day, we're the Village of Parks. We have another folio that we're looking at that I'm very excited about. It's in a community where adjacent property owners, at least at this time, support. It's on 160th and 89th Avenue. That would be a lease deal where we would create a green space. It's not a linear park. It would literally be like what we were calling it before, like in our Parks Master Plan, Pocket Park. It's a square. It's owned by Water and Sewer, and they would continue to own it. It would kind of be like the Woods. I don't know if you're familiar. The Woods is on 168th. We leased it for 99 years, kind of the same thing. So that's in motion as well. In my opinion, I mean, initiative that I have always wanted was to put green space within 1 mile of every resident. I can't really think of any better use of surplus property than to allow the public to be able to have a safe space to kind of walk through, especially given all the conversation we have about, the dangerous roads, the traffic. We want to make sure that people are able to move about and play in areas that are safe.
So what's the current status of one or more of the neighbors acquiring this public land for their private use?
That I don't know, because now it's in the county's hands. So the county can make decisions. The county could decide, you know what, we're not going to negotiate with any of these with any of these property owners, and we're going to keep it. The county could also decide, which was one idea that was proffered. Actually, I want to say it was by then Chairman Oliver Gilbert. They could essentially the county could keep it and create a linear park or green space, or just keep it exactly the way it is. My thought process is, again, we're the Village of Parks. You
Is there
want to.
any pressure on the county to like, okay, there seems to be this conflict that going on between public use and private use.
Right.
What's the pressure on the county?
Actually, that's a great. I'm so glad you brought that up, and I didn't think of it. I should have sent you a screenshot of that. But the county, through Commissioner Regalado, just passed an item that will essentially. This is the short story of the legislative item. Put public lands in public hands. And I got to say a shout out.
I like that. That is good. I like that.
You might know that guy, Grant Miller.
Oh,
actually, because you all, at least, through your
same mother, same father, grew up in the same place.
I have no idea what he's talking about or what he's doing. But it's kind of become a bit of a hashtag. So kudos to him. But they basically passed something saying, because these are easements, so it's important, right? FPL, even though they're not publicly coming out and saying this way or that, in my conversations with FPL, government relations, they would prefer the city to have the property because they need access to those easements, because we know people want to have electricity all the time, and periodically we have issues, so we want to be able to give them access. It's a little bit harder for some of the areas that have been fenced off, because there is another area that's very similar. It happened in 2018. We were not involved in the process. I know my commissioner asked me at a public meeting, what did I do at that time? I had no knowledge. It wasn't brought to my attention. Maybe our then manager knew, but I didn't know.
So this movement by County Commissioner Regalado, has that been passed?
Well, it has, but the Section 5 eliminates any current properties that have been circulated, and these folios have been circulated, department circulated. So the Village of Palmetto Bay's Tanglewood Park would not fall under the legislation, which means this could be one of the last properties that would be purchased by an adjacent property owner. So
is the county in some sort of hurry to do something with this?
I don't think so, because it's been surplus for quite some time. So I don't know. There seems to be no rush in my mind. Maybe things will get accelerated, or, it's government. Things take a long time. You heard that from the vice mayor too, when you spoke to him. Things take a long time. So
what's going to happen?
Well, there's a grassroots group who is led by a resident, not an adjacent property owner. It's actually her daughter. She's in 5th grade at Howard Drive. And she has been circulating a petition, a change.org petition. I'll leave at some point. Oh, thank you. You are quick, Miss Rochelle. If you're interested, you can sign her petition. I think she's got, I think recently, 234
and who is that addressed to?
Signatures. Well, this one is addressed to the county commissioners. Really, it's not in our hands at the moment. Unless something changes, it's not in our hands.
So I understand it's not in your hands, but the reality is people still listen.
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
And if anybody on that commission thinks that, hey, I think that would be a mistake and it would be better served either nothing or as a park.
So we had strong support from many of the commissioners, and that in a large part had to do with the advocacy efforts, the lobbying efforts. Yes. Although we had individual conversations, like I said, the relationships have to be a little bit deeper than what I have with the commissioners. And I think several of them were supportive. When I heard them at the committee, they felt that the public land should be in public hands. I think if it had been brought to the council, we would have prevailed, and mainly because, we did, and I got to give our manager a little bit of kudos here, because we did, he met with all of these residents and essentially went through the letter that was presented to the commissioner. So if, let's say you live there on the corner and you're Michael Miller, and you come in and meet with the manager and you say, I need a buffer and I want 50 feet. And not for nothing, some residents' property lines have already been extended. So they're already in the county, county property. We would have given them their piece, kind of protected them.
When you say they're already extended, what does that mean?
There's 3 homes. Yeah, there's 3 homes that have already extended their properties.
So is it titled to them?
and they've lived there a long time, or they bought it that way. So yeah, so the answer is no, it's not. So
it's not what?
It's not titled to them.
All right.
Yeah, so that was going to be our role, making sure that once we got our linear parkway, I mean, that's one group of 3 people. But the point is, just working with folks. Either way, I'm comfortable with the way it is as well. I'm okay if this is the way the council wants to go.
Can the council
respect
do that? If one of the people that voted against it, they say, listen, I'm going to bring it back for a vote. Is there still time to do that?
Yeah, there is.
So
yeah.
Patrick, speak up. Be a man already. Come on.
No, don't say
up.
that. Don't, Patrick. Cover your ears. Don't listen. Don't.
He's a good friend.
He's a good friend and a good guy.
And so part of this is the big question is, should it stay in public hands? Right.
Right.
And it has nothing to do with who the neighbors are. It's got nothing to do with that. All right.
And actually, in many respects, these are folks that I know. So there's that level of, we talked a little bit before about being uncomfortable. That feels uncomfortable, right? I don't want people to be mad at me, but I also am there for the greater good. I did my own unscientific poll way back, 2020, probably 2022, let's say, or I'd have to go back and look. It might have even been earlier than that. And I just put it out. I couldn't gauge who was
put it
out through my mail list.
Okay.
I couldn't gauge
what put out
saying, should it be public land or should it be private land?
Right.
And overwhelmingly, people want it to be public land. No parking. No, it would be walk or bicycle up. But I also am cognizant people get worried, right? If something is going to, you've been in this position, right, where something is going to happen in your backyard, in this case, very close to your backyard. People have concerns, and we've tried to address all of the concerns. But I get it. This is where we are.
Or it could just stay the way it is for a while.
It could just stay the way it is. Yeah, it could just stay the way it is. And I think at the end of the day, it's the grassroots component. We'll see how that kind of...
But what is it? So let's say the grassroots people say, hey, listen, city commission. Hey, listen, county. Mm-hmm. We think it should stay in public hands. So who would be the one to say, hey, let's take a look at this again? So who is that person or people?
It would be the county. Yeah, it would be the county.
And it would start with the local commissioner.
It could, or anybody could have that conversation. I think they kind of defer to each other,
yep.
Right? But yes.
But that county commissioner is in that area. She's already stated her position. She has, yes,
because the village was trying to acquire it. So her position, at least from what I've heard, because she doesn't really speak to me, so I haven't had the opportunity to have a conversation with her. But what I understand is that she felt that the resident, Miss Padron, had started the process before us. But if you read in some of the ordinances, some of the past policy, there is policy that allows for cities to take a look too. And frankly, that's what they've just done, because it makes sense. If you're a municipality, 34 municipalities, skip the unincorporated Dade at the moment, because unincorporated Dade has a lot of linear parks right across the street from me. There's not across the street from me, my home, but across the street from Palmetto Bay. I'm sorry, I start thinking about Palmetto Bay as it's become a part of my DNA. So over by the falls, there's a linear park there as well. So, and it's county-owned property.
Okay. New subject.
Yeah.
We got 2 minutes left, and Rochelle hasn't been waving at me, but I know. We're pretty close.
Okay.
Right? So tell us something that's going to happen next month when you come back in April, all right, for another show. What are some of the things that are going to happen between now and then that we're going to talk about then?
Well, I may talk about some policy. Our next meeting, we actually had such a long meeting at this last March meeting that we had to defer several of the items to March 18th. We're going to have a special council meeting. Our April meeting, I have no idea what's going to be on it yet. So we'll take a look at the April meeting and policy in Palmetto Bay. I'm sure there'll be some good stuff and some stuff I don't agree with. We could talk about that.
Okay,
yeah.
And going back to your last day serving in the village of Palmetto Bay is what month is that?
It will be December of 2026 when a new mayor will be sworn in.
So that's a year and a half.
Yeah,
year and a half.
And maybe we'll talk about the candidates that are currently filed to run for mayor.
Oh, that'd be good. Maybe next month we'll do that. Okay, we're going to look at the red camera,
All
and
right.
Mayor, you're going to take us out.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. And hopefully you'll join me next month. And I want to thank Community Newspapers. You guys are awesome.